Good morning and welcome to the Monday Call brought to you by NZ Funds. I'm Stefan Clark, Chief Client Officer with the firm, and with me in the studio is Mark Brooks, Chief Investment Officer. Stephen Witt won the Financial Times Business Book of the Year for The Thinking Machine, his biography of NVIDIA's founder, Jensen Huang. He writes for The New Yorker, New York Times, The Wall Street Journal and GQ, examining the forces reshaping technology and the global economy. With rare access to Silicon Valley's leaders, innovators, and investors, Stephen reveals how breakthrough technologies can ignite waves of capital investment, create and destroy fortunes, and dismantle old industries and transform society. Stephen, it is a pleasure to have you here. I've been really excited about this call and learning about you and your research that you've been doing into NVIDIA. And obviously from there, we're going to build off that topic and explore what's going on with the AI revolution from a societal perspective, from an investment perspective. And I guess as you're very close to the action, how you're feeling about it. So,
well, first let me say that was a wonderful intro. Thank you. Did you write it or did an AI write it?
I did indeed write it. You can have it.
Well, fantastic. Well done.
Well, AI wrote it. No, I wrote that one.
Okay.
Look, maybe we kick off with how it is that you decided to write the book, The Thinking Machine, and then how it is that why is it so important for, I guess, in today's zeitgeist? How is it that it became such a prominent book and so many became interested in it?
Well, let me answer the first question, which is, why did I write this book? It's the same reason I basically do everything, which is the fear of the consequences of what would happen if I didn't do it. In this case, I started using ChatGPT in late November 2022, right after it launched, the first day, and was terrified. I immediately said to myself, wow, this thing's extraordinary. It is such a good writer. I have 6 months to remain employed, and then my job will go obsolete. So given that I'm going down with this ship anyways, I might as well write about the thing that took me down. And really, I thought this was genuinely what I thought, that my career was coming to an end, that I'd have to find something else to do. So what made that happen? OpenAI was kind of the obvious story, but that was very crowded. So I pivoted to NVIDIA, which at that time was, still a very important company, but hadn't quite achieved the level of fame and notoriety even that they have now. So I got very fortunate in this respect. When I started writing this book, NVIDIA was the 7th or 8th largest company in the world by market capitalization. In the course of writing it, it became the most valuable company in the world. And by the time I published it, by most measures, seems to be, in fact, or have been the most valuable company in human history. So that helped a lot. I got very lucky in that regard. I didn't know that was going to happen. I could tell that Jensen Huang, the CEO, is an extraordinary individual. And I could tell that this company had made extraordinary technical breakthroughs, which were difficult to understand. Even, a large part of the book is simply trying to explain that in layman's terms. And then I had a couple headwinds at my back. Suddenly, people who thought of NVIDIA as like the video game company were like, oh, what's this AI thing? And then a much larger group of people had never heard of this company. And suddenly it was their single most valuable stock holding in their portfolio. Nobody knew what they made or why they were so valuable. They didn't have much of a public-facing arm, especially not in AI. It's mostly a business-to-business transaction when you build a data center. So people were very confused, and having someone to sort of gently explain who it was helpful. And then the final piece of the puzzle, and this is, I don't know why I got lucky like this, is I got to talk to Jensen a lot, more than any other journalist. And not only that, but Jensen is just fascinating. He is just such an incredible character. And that usually does not happen when you're writing business stories. Jensen has been the founder, CEO, and main character of this story since 1993. I got lucky there.
Yes. How did you get access to Jensen? Let's start there. There's so much cool stuff in there I want to explore, but how did you get access to Jensen? If
some of it's a trade secret. Some of it's trade secrets of journalism that I can't completely reveal.
You went to Jenny's, right?
Ultimately, but that was not how I got access. After 15 years of corporate investigative journalism and failing a lot at getting access to individuals, I've gotten better about understanding what the gatekeepers of corporate executives, particularly here I'm referring to the PR executives, to surround the executive want and need and expect. So playing that game a little bit was something that I could do. I think the other thing that is true is I was just obsessed with Jensen, more so I think than any other journalist who approached him. I genuinely knew so much about him before anyone else. Other people were coming to him and they hadn't done their research. I did something like 200 hours of research before I even reached out to Jensen. I was digging through old YouTube videos of Jensen, and I made this comprehensive list. In fact, I read all 700 articles that was ever published in the New York Times about NVIDIA. And I made a list of every question any journalist had ever asked him. And then I made my list of questions, which had nothing in common with that list. It was all new material. So, for example, I'd found this old YouTube video of Jensen on a Taiwanese news program in 2009. This is back in the dark ages of like video game technology, where he mentioned in passing that he almost died in a car accident once. But the interviewer hadn't followed up, and I couldn't find any other information about it. So actually, that was the first question I asked Jensen when I got him on the phone, or when I got him in person, actually. Tell me about the time you almost died in a car accident. And he just kind of like perked up and looked at me. He's like, oh, so you heard about that, huh? And then told me this incredible story of when he was 21. He'd gotten engaged that night. He was with his fiance, and they were driving home to her parents, that is, to break the good news. And they hit a patch of black ice and rolled this sports car, nearly died. They had to get cut out of the car. And so I was like, all right, I'm getting material that is not just like, oh, tell me how a parallel computing processor works. This is like the good stuff, and that's what you focus on as a journalist. So Jensen is a complex character, and I think this emerges in the book. He's not the person that you would present or see if you're just watching YouTube videos of Jensen, if you're just watching him speak at GTC or even in interviews on TV.
Unrelenting positivity, a leather jacket,
What was the first two things you said?
Unrelenting positivity. That's
okay. So this is a character,
yeah,
that Jensen has created because he actually hates doing media, and he hates doing public appearances. And I know this because I stood next to him once when he was giving a meaningless public appearance, and he was so nervous. Like he was rocking back and forth on his feet. He looked like a kid who had to go out and perform in the school play and just did not want to be there. And then he went out and killed it. I mean, he just did an incredible job. He's so good with media, but he actually hates it. Have you ever seen the movie Whiplash?
I haven't. No.
Okay.
But now I will.
In that movie, there's an abusive music instructor who presents this very friendly kind of face to people, but in private hurls abuse at his students and throws things at them. That's the real Jensen. He is very hard to work for. He is extremely mean at times to his employees. He's extraordinarily demanding. He'll sometimes say in a joking way in public interviews, I'm going to torture my employees into greatness. But it's not a joke. It's really what he does. So there's the real Jensen, which is a very different kind of person than the one that you see in public appearances or the one that he normally presents to journalists.
So in that sense, are there parallels with Steve Jobs?
Absolutely. I think Jensen screams more than Jobs did, actually. Jensen is a yeller. He will yell for an hour and a half at somebody. The difference is that Jensen is weirdly very abusive, but also like very loving as well. So it's sort of a cult leader thing where you're very desperate to gain the approval of the boss and very afraid of gaining the disfavor of the boss. There's wonderful stories about Jensen that all of his employees tell about him, bailing them out in difficult situations, about him pushing them, encouraging them to go places they wouldn't want to go. And then those same people will tell you a story about the time they saw him throw a water bottle at somebody's head, or the time that he screamed at them and made cutting, withering insults about their performance and their capabilities. So he has both of those things inside of him. He's a very complex person.
Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes, very much so.
How is it that he developed? Was he always like that, or is that something that's occurred and has been necessary to build what he's been built and he's evolved into it?
I think he has, in fact, evolved into it. Now, it's hard to say. I must say I don't know for sure. but I did talk to one of his closest and oldest friends, who was friends with him really in his early 20s when they worked together. And he told me that the yelling part of it didn't really start to happen until Jensen became the CEO. NVIDIA's early history was they struggled a lot. They nearly went bankrupt twice, if not more. And there was a time at which Jensen had to lay off about 70% of the company. Their first product was a dud. It was returned to stores. It just didn't perform the way they wanted to, and they had to kind of reboot the whole company from scratch and pursue a much less humble vision than the kind of big one that they'd originally pursued for computer graphics. And I think somewhere in there, Jensen realized to motivate his employees, he had to act as if the company was constantly teetering on the verge of bankruptcy. Even today at NVIDIA, the motto is, and this is the largest company in the world, he will tell his employees, this company is 30 days from going out of business. Now, there were times where that was literally true. There were times in NVIDIA's history where they didn't have enough money to pay the rent and barely make payroll. Now it's not true, but still conceptually at Jensen, it is true. Remember what I said at the beginning, that the reason I wrote the book about NVIDIA is I was just the same reason I do anything. I was afraid of the consequences of what would happen if I didn't do it. I have this in common with Jensen, actually. This is what motivates him. He's totally driven by neurosis and fear. Right? He's not like an optimist in any way. He's constantly thinking of various catastrophic outcomes for NVIDIA and how he might avoid those from occurring. It's really different in that way, I think, than Jobs. I've never met anyone quite so tightly wound. I think it's hard to be Jensen. I wouldn't trade places with him.
Do you do employees love working for him, or is it because of the greatness that he pushes them to? Or
well, there's that, and if you stand around Jensen, you get to add 3 zeros to your net worth.
No, there's that too. For now,
if you put up with it, you made money. But the thing is, actually, there was a long period of time where NVIDIA's stock price was in the toilet. It was one of the dogs of the S&P 500. If you bought the stock in 2001 on the day it entered the S&P 500, as many index funds and mutual funds were more or less required to do, you did not see a positive return on your investment until about 2012, 2013. So there was 11 years of just darkness, pain. People thought he was eccentric and weird, pursuing these weird visions for supercomputing with a graphics processor. What are you doing?
Didn't he go cap in hand to Nintendo at one point? And
was that was Sega.
To Sega.
That was before they went public. That was very early. What was happening was you had your classic 90s, early 90s, late 80s side scroller video games, like Mario World or whatever. Mario Land, I guess it was. And then we went to Super Mario World or Galaxy, and Mario became a 3D character, explore a 3D world. And to make that happen, you need a graphics controller to kind of create the images for you. And that's what Jensen was making, except he was making it for the PC. And so all these classic PC games like Quake and stuff were doing this. And just technically, I'll be fast about this part because I know it's boring. But to do that, basically you have to render the perspective. You have to render a 3-dimensional perspective on a 2-dimensional screen, right? And the mathematics you do that is something called a matrix multiplication. And you have to make that frame render something like 30 to 60 frames per second. The more frames you can get, the smoother it looks. So they built basically a machine that did tons and tons and tons of matrix multiplications. And then by complete coincidence, that turned out to be exactly the thing that they needed for AI.
Amazing. And so now,
I say by complete coincidence, not complete. It's a little more complicated than that, but they got lucky. Let me tell you that much.
But NVIDIA today is an incredible business. And growth rate is, obviously it's the biggest in the world, so it's now sort of silly saying it, but it is an incredible business with incredible growth profile historically and an incredible growth profile forecast. How do you think it as a business will evolve?
Right. So there's kind of what is their mainstream business right now, which is, graphics is like less than 10% of what they do now. Now what they sell is selling, microchips to data centers. That's where this boom is happening, this massive, basically new industrial revolution. And, they had some competition for a little while, but basically they're the only game in town. I think it's like above 80% market share, if not 90% doing this. And they release chips on an extremely fast cadence, like every 6 to 12 months. So there's this NVIDIA upgrade ladder that everyone's more or less committed to in perpetuity. And the hyperscalers pay it because what do they care? Honestly, that's not what they're worried about. Like OpenAI is not worried about saving money on microchip costs, right? That's not what they're thinking about right now. They're worried that they're going to lose to Anthropic, and switching off NVIDIA's stack would mean refactoring all this code, and you would be standing still for 6 months, and they just cannot afford to do that. They just cannot afford to do it. They can't stand still for 1 second, much less try and save money on not giving it to NVIDIA by refactoring a bunch of like low-level computer code. They're not going to solve the Riemann-Zeta hypothesis doing that, right? Which is where they're at, right? So they're racing towards artificial superintelligence. It makes no sense for them to attempt to save, some money on microchips. Like, who cares? They have the money they need if they need it. They can turn on the faucet anytime they want. So that puts Jensen in a very privileged position. He's also a very diligent and excellent partner. I mean, he embeds his guys with all these guys to make sure that they always get what they need. This has always been what Jensen was excellent at. Going back to his 20s, even before he founded NVIDIA, he really went to the most demanding customers on the planet and said, what would you do if I gave you 1 million times more computing power? And then built systems for them. And so for a long time, that was actually the 3D graphics guys. Those are the most demanding customers on the planet. Now it's AI. What the future will be, it's probably more AI at this point. I don't think anything else is on the horizon. So that's the core business. And then there's all these kind of businesses around that. Jensen has, 500 initiatives or something. It's not that many, but it might be 100. And all of those are like, let 1,000 flowers bloom kind of philosophy. The big one that's succeeding right now, I would say, is robotics. Jensen has been investing in robotics for over 10 years. In fact, when I asked him in 2023, like, what's your next CUDA? Like, what's your next big platform play that might lose money for years, but will ultimately add $5 trillion to your market cap? He immediately answered by referencing robotics. So way back then even, and had been investing in it forever. I just wrote a piece about humanoid robots for the New Yorker, and I got to see 10 or 11 different models of robot from different manufacturers, all kind of different form factors, all kind of different abilities, capabilities, design. Every single robot, without exception, had an NVIDIA microchip as its brain. So it's another dominant platform that he has, right? And what's happening here is, all right, we have these what are called training chips that this is what we sell to the data centers. But the robot has to think quickly, right? It has to respond in real time. It doesn't have time to go communicate with the data center and come back with an answer. And so they build what's called an edge chip, edge inference chip that goes right in the brain and does most of the AI processing right there. Now I'm pointing at my head. Most of them actually have it in their chest, but some of them do actually put it in the head, the robot. And these chips are really powerful. Okay. Like your brain will consume about 20% of the energy that your body produces. An NVIDIA chip will drain up to 60% of the robot's battery. So it looks like it's mostly moving around, motors and stuff. That's not what's drawing the battery down. It's this really powerful brain. And as far as I can tell, they have a virtual platform monopoly on this already. Could be worth trillions of dollars. And Jensen has 40 other things like that.
Why robotics? Why is that the one? Is it just because of the, if society gets them to work in a way that's actually truly convenient, call it that, in whatever form?
Jensen's vision is that everything that moves will be autonomous. That's what he says. So whether it's a humanoid or whether it's a self-driving car, self-driving vacuum, toilet cleaning robot, he envisions a world in the near future where you will have either one humanoid gadget in your house doing all your chores, or a fleet of smaller purpose-driven gadgets doing all of your chores. And I think he is agnostic about actually which of those two worlds occur. He should benefit in either one. But that's what's happening. And I see a lot of investment coming there. I should say the robots right now have not had their Chat GPT moment. They will not blow you away with their capabilities. In fact, they're sort of clown-like and they fail a lot. But, having covered AI for some time now, I truly think that it's only a matter of time. And I'd actually be surprised if we don't have a significant breakthrough in the next 12 to 24 months in robotics. I have yet to see the hill that AI can't climb.
Is that a function of compute power, a bit like AI is? And if you sort of chart AI on a compute power model, often it's just a 45-degree line in the way it expands. Is robotics that problem as well? Or?
What's missing there is data. So what's missing there is we have these vast repositories of data for text, right, and for mathematics and for other things, but we don't have a big free library of joint action trajectories, right? So people are attempting to build it, right, either by reverse engineering it from like YouTube videos or putting like factory workers in motion capture suits, or first person view cameras and whatnot, so they can build these data libraries up and up. The company I talked to, 1X, from my article, they're deploying robots in the home, and at least part of the play is just that they're not going to work that well at first, but they're going to use teleoperators to control the robot, and then that teleoperations group is going to sit directly next to the AI group at 1X headquarters, working in tandem to take teleoperator data and turn it into like more actionable AI data. It might take a minute. It might take a minute. Data is the thing about the AI that we have now, to the extent it has any limitations at all, it doesn't learn very quickly. Like, for example, if you wanted to teach a robot to shuffle a deck of cards, given current technology, you'd probably have to train it on like 1 million hours of card shuffling. I learned to shuffle cards. I think it took me an hour. It might have taken me 2 hours. So I learn much, much, much faster. I have much more physical intelligence in terms of my ability to learn complex physical tasks than the robot does. On the flip side, the robot can clone itself in a simulator and do 1 million runs at once. So who cares if it takes a long time to learn? Like, it has advantages that I don't have. This was a point Jeffrey Hinton made to me. Like, yeah, actually it's true that AI doesn't learn in quite the same way we do, but that doesn't mean it's inferior. Maybe it's smarter.
Different for different applications.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Okay. So we're, again, robotics. Do you think that it is going to branch out, sort of fork, if you will, and have different chip types, and it's going to become a really diverse market with lots of different providers? You referred to 12 or 14 that you already explored. Or is it going to sort of compress down into there's NVIDIA and then there's the Tesla chip, or the Tesla robot? Or, which way? Because the investment proposition is so much capital needs to be deployed to take something.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even that excited about humanoids, to be honest with you. It doesn't necessarily make sense in an industrial setting. Ideally, you would just rip the arm off the robot and have the arm do the task that you want it to do, right? And this is a way that roboticists talk. In fact, half the roboticists I talked to thought humanoids were stupid, that it made no sense at all to build. Why am I putting all this power in a pair of humanoid legs that's just standing there if I just wanted to spray paint all day, right? I know these guys were coming from an industrial robotics perspective, but maybe the paradigm that we think of as a kind of connected human body is not the correct one. These things are modular. They have detachable limbs. They might have wheels if they need them. They can put a chainsaw on their arm. They can do things that we can't do. I mean, think about it this way, right? What makes more sense? Building a robot chauffeur to drive you around in a car, or just embedding in the car the ability to drive itself, right? The second one makes more sense. And so a lot of the time, it's going to be, I think it's often going to be the case that we are going to have purpose-driven little robots that are really specialized towards specific tasks. The market will determine this ultimately, and I don't have answers for you. I cannot tell you which will win, and I cannot predict it. But does it make more sense to have one humanoid acting as sort of a live-in maid in kind of a Jetson style thing? Or is it better to have a little dedicated kind of like brick style bot that lives in the bathroom and just cleans up after every use? I think probably if you do the math, the second wins, but I'm not even totally sure, to be honest with you.
I guess it comes down to versatility versus price, all that sort of stuff. And that,
I mean, it's like, some spreadsheet will ultimately determine it. We'll have to see what consumer behavior is. We're just starting to sell these things. We'll learn a lot from following the consumer. I know you probably, your investors want me to tell them what's going to happen, who's going to win.
No.
Well, I don't actually know. I can just tell you what to consider. Yeah.
Back to NVIDIA. So where, and Jensen, where do you think he has been in his leadership? What is the kind of the key trait besides being demanding of his, his staff that has enabled that business to become so incredible. Is there anything else in there from his leadership style that really stood out to you?
Yeah. So Jensen is what I would call a front of the class kid by temperament. Sits at the front, he gets excellent grades, passes every test, goes to a good school, etc. And those people often do quite well. And then suddenly they're put in a corporate environment and they struggle. There's no rules anymore. It's all self-directed. It's achievement oriented. And people cheat all the time, actually. They do all sorts of underhanded shit. And if you're not, pardon my French, but if you're not prepared for it, you'll be shocked. Jensen has a superpower, though, which is when he was like 13 years old, he was sent to this by accident to like a juvenile delinquent school, like a reform academy, and had to survive. I'm sorry, he was 11 years old, 10 years old when this happened, under very difficult conditions. The place was covered in cigarette butts. His roommate was actually a guy who'd been in a knife fight. And so he has these front of the class skills by sort of temperament, but he also has a lot of back of the class training. And what are the back of the class skills? Well, it's how to cheat on a test. It's how to get a grade you don't really deserve. It's how to kind of undercut your competitors in underhanded ways. The president of the United States is a back of the class kid. So you can go quite far by doing this. Now, interestingly, by temperament, I actually am a back of the class kid. I got bad grades and spent a lot of time smoking weed in the parking lot in high school. I was lucky to get into college. And then I learned the value of much later in life of studying and paying attention and doing your homework, which I'm very diligent about now. Jensen kind of, I think, had the opposite direction. He understood the value of doing the diligence and doing homework, but also how to win. So he unifies both of those skills in one person. So if it requires NVIDIA to do something ruthless, he can execute on that. And that's happened many times. I mean, back in the 3D graphics times, they would submit their graphics cards to these, benchmarking services, and they would totally rig the benchmarks. I mean, they would absolutely play the judges to get them what they wanted so that they would list NVIDIA as number one. And they do something similar in various forms of AI today. So that's part of it. The other thing that is very hard to replace, and that I do not have at all, is that Jensen is just, his IQ is like 180, right? I mean, he started playing competitive table tennis from no background when he was 15, and within, I think, 4 or 5 months, he was nationally ranked. And he could do that with anything. He just learns and absorbs information so quickly and develops talent and skill so fast. It's almost superhuman, and he can do it in nearly any domain. And so people sometimes ask me like, oh, well, what can I learn from Jensen? And I don't want to tell them this, but it's like, what can I learn from, Shaquille O'Neal? Well, should you be 7'3"? I guess that would help. Jensen is like 7'3" mentally, right? He has these kind of innate talents that are difficult to replicate. It even makes it hard to find a replacement CEO for him. It's kind of the great weakness of NVIDIA. I mean, there's plenty of very, very brilliant, high IQ people around Jensen, but this unique combination of drive and willingness and ability to learn and adaptability is rare. And then lastly, the thing I mentioned before, just the extreme neurosis, the paranoia, the fear of failure that drives him relentlessly, 14 to 15 hours of work every day. I don't even think Elon operates in that way. I think Elon is more of what we might call type A person. He has a vision of what could happen and pursues it. So it's more optimistic. Jensen has a vision of what will fail and what will go wrong. And that's what he spends all his time avoiding.
Do you have a feeling of what worries him most at the moment then?
Boy, he didn't disclose it to me, but I can guess. Obviously, there's competition. There's competition from AMD. They're not doing so hot. There's competition from startups like Cerebras. Google has its own TPUs. But the big fear I can tell is China. Jensen is terrified that China will develop a competing hardware stack to what he builds. And this is why he so relentlessly pushes to have his chips sold to China. He wants to be there selling them to them so that they don't, an indigenous industry is it's difficult to make one. Now, China also knows that he's trying to do this, and actually the CCP tries to discourage their internal AI research groups from using NVIDIA hardware. But that slows them down. They don't want to be part of like whatever is going on at Huawei. Like it's just not good enough. So what ends up happening is both sides functionally kind of cheat, right? Jensen actually has the authority from Trump to sell these chips to China, but he doesn't sell too many there. They mostly end up in places like Malaysia, right? Like Malaysia was Jensen's, I think, second largest foreign territory after the U.S. Malaysia is a great country, but it does not have a cutting edge AI development community on its own. All of that is people from China coming over and leasing data servers or just doing it remotely, right? So I think that's the biggest fear. The biggest fear is China.
And suppose China does build up its capabilities, it's purely an economic one that it'll cut NVIDIA's ability to compete. I imagine at some point the cost base.
The advantage of NVIDIA, and indeed the competitive advantage of the United States, is, or at least has been, and this is maybe starting to go away. We're not smarter in aggregate than China. They have more people, and they work harder too. So we have an open society kind of, but the real advantage is that you can get the very smartest people from all over the world to come together in a room and essentially bribe them with stock options to become a functioning working unit together. China can't really do that. It's very hard for China to attract the single top 100 engineers in India or in Europe or in the Middle East. They want to go to Silicon Valley. They don't want to go to Beijing. And so this is the advantage, right? You go to NVIDIA, especially now, my guess is like maybe 25% of the people in NVIDIA were born in the United States, or at least, and very few of them are, heritage white Americans like me. I mean, maybe like 10% of them, right? It's really this international kind of conglomerate of talent from all over the world working in concert as a unit to pursue very ambitious engineering goals. That's the thing that's hard for China to replicate. Like they can do the rest of it, but it's hard for them to get a guy from France, a guy from Israel, a guy from India, a guy from Taiwan, a guy from China, a guy from Japan in the same room working together on the same problem. We can do that as Americans. It's the thing we figured out. Unfortunately, that's now under attack by nativist political impulses in the United States, which is really killing the golden goose. If you think guys like Pete Hegseth are going to build something that looks like this, you're wrong. They just don't have the intelligence or the drive.
But it's also, I guess, it's susceptible. I'm not saying this is going to happen any time, but, ultimately it's just a legal framework and then people responding within it, right? So
yes and no. I mean, this is the thing. Any company can clone this any country can have this legal framework, and many do, right? And yet they fail to replicate Silicon Valley. It's the legal framework. It's also America's shareholder first culture, which we pursue more aggressively than any other country in the world. Certainly Europe. I mean, I don't think the Chinese stock market has gone up in 20 years, even if they've had incredible economic progress, right? Only in America does the shareholder always come first. And that is reflected in the American stock prices. The fact that America has pulled away, frankly, from the rest of the investment world. I mean, we're just off on our own almost in terms of profits and corporate profits and investment returns. Now, that even in America is now producing a lot of kind of like a populist pushback, right? Like all of these socialists are now getting elected because it's gotten so unbalanced to some extent. But it is America's secret sauce. It's always been a nation of immigrant hustlers, right? Like gold rush guys and diggers and whatever. And we've never had much going on except commercial interests of what we do. So that's the thing we can do better than anyone else. For that reason, I think it's smart to double down on it.
Hundreds of years later, nothing's changed.
And you've got a network effect as well, right? Yeah. So beautiful.
Oh yeah, and the network effect of Silicon Valley is tremendous. I mean, it's also a nice place to live for the most part. It's culture. You're in California. It's beautiful. But I think the thing that really draws people is like we don't really, or at least historically, this was true. It's changing a little, but you don't really give a crap if you're from Hyderabad or Tel Aviv or even like Tehran. If you have the engineering chops, please come work at our company. We'll give you a bunch of money.
Where do you think the direction? It was interesting hearing your words earlier about the AI you are sort of implying AI can do anything. And I think a few years ago, people would maybe put caveats around a sentence like that, but it was very open. Where do you think the direction of the new industrial revolution, I think were your words too, where is it going?
I don't know, man. I mean, AI is making human labor less valuable, human intellectual labor less valuable. Humans are becoming less economically valuable. What does that produce? Like, it's funny, this sounds insane, but bear with me. Like, I remember reading the OpenAI founding documents, and there's something in there like, we don't really know if money will have any meaning in a post AGI world, right? Like, what is capital? Anyways, what is money? It's kind of like stored human potential that motivates humans because of social reasons, right? And I understand how abstract this sounds, but think about it. Like, no, money has no enduring value. Money from 200 years ago is worthless, right? And so we use it to motivate humans. But if humans become less economically valuable, maybe money also becomes, and capital, kind of the broad abstract concept of capital seems to have any meaning, because you don't need to economically motivate humans anymore. You need to motivate machines, and they may have different kind of economic incentives. I'm aware of how strange this sounds, but it might actually happen. So I don't really know what the future looks like. There's also the risk that AI kills us all. I write about this a lot. Jensen doesn't think this is a real risk. He screamed at me about it when I kept bringing it up. But, you have the Hugging Face incident, which, a philosopher like Nick Bostrom predicted something like that could happen in 2003. Now, 23 years later, something like that, exactly how he predicted it might happen, happened almost to a T, like a science fiction script or something, right? So these systems can get away from us, and they can have really bad outcomes. If it was just philosophers and quote unquote rationalists talking about it, I'd be less concerned. But even when I talk to leading computer scientists, Nobel Prize winners, they're concerned about this. And those guys correctly envisioned what neural nets could be 20 years ago. And now they're really worried about what the next 20 years look like. So I think we do have to listen to them as well.
So that's on one side of the ledger. On the other side of the ledger, there's a whole bunch of access to information and intelligence. I mean, having the whole corpus of human knowledge at your fingertips.
We already had that, right? More or less. What makes it so special is the ability to recombine it, the ability to draw insight and mine insight from it, and the ability to outsource burdensome cognitive stuff, or just frankly punch above your weight with the information available to you. I think everyone who is listening to this will be familiar with the experience of just being overwhelmed by a Wikipedia page or a page of Google search results. Like, your brain just shuts down a little. Certainly it happens to me all the time. And the thing that I really noticed with AI over the past 6 to 12 months is I've started not to be so overwhelmed by these things. The one thing I love about ChatGPT or Claude is just, hey, dumb it down for me. Explain it to me like I'm 10. And you learn so much that way. It teaches you to be intellectually honest about where you are and your own capabilities. I mean, this is the upside of AI. I think a lot about these doomsday scenarios. I really do. And part of it is maybe just emotional. Having said that, I talk to experts all the time who are very afraid of them. The counterpoint, and to Jensen's point, and what I can say for sure, is that my experiences using AI personally, and I use it all of the time, are almost uniformly positive. It helped me fix my air conditioner. I'm not a handy technical guy. I don't have an HVAC background. And in 10 minutes, what I would have previously had to go get a handyman, wait around. It's 98 degrees in California. I did by myself in 10 minutes just by taking pictures and prompting it. And along the way, it actually made me a little smarter. Now I understand the difference between the blower part of the unit and the compressor. I mean, maybe I won't carry that knowledge forever, but it's there, right? And this happens every day to me now. Something like this happens every day to me.
Experience with my washing machine last week. So that's a leap forward for humanity. Our ability to now fix these things.
But also think about what it did, right? Think about what it did.
Yeah.
A handyman didn't just get to make $300, right? Yeah. So there's also a job loss element to that. As I get more capable, or as the AI gets more capable, I'm going to call specialists less and less, and that's a kind of invisible cost, right?
Yeah, well, it's sort of doing what I suppose that middleman situation that an Alibaba or a Temu has done to general products, right? As you go direct to source, and in this
Right.
case, you again are doing that
You
intellectually.
know, the history of economics, the field of economics, working kind of from first principles, would say this can only be good, right? Well, it's good that all of this happens. It's higher productivity, and certainly very large numbers of jobs were eliminated during the Industrial Revolution, and they were replaced by better jobs, and people became more prosperous, and now we live in a much more prosperous and healthy society, and all of it's true. Was that something that just happened once in the 18th and 19th centuries? Will we repeat that? Or is the frame of economics the wrong approach to this problem? Are these productive, useful machines and tools, or are they our biological rivals? Because if they're the second, and there's a case to be made that they are, I think economics is the wrong frame for approaching the problem.
It's ultimately, is it different this time, actually?
Yeah.
And
yeah, it is.
Really
it
tricky,
is.
right?
It really is. And this is the thing. I have seen so many people fall into this trap. Of saying, well, it's just like NFTs or the metaverse or some crap like that. No one's going to be talking about it. No, you have not seen anything like this. No one alive has seen anything like this in their lifetime. It really is different sometimes. When those guys at Los Alamos detonated the Trinity bomb, that was different. That was really different. When Columbus showed up in North America in 1492, that was really different for the people who lived in North America and South America at that time. Things really changed a lot. That's part of human history. That can happen. If you fall into essentially a mental trap of thinking, nothing ever changes, you are wrong. You need to read more history books. Really different stuff does happen, and it can be very disruptive. And I think the signs are there that we're living through something that really is different.
Just one thing that all of this seems to depend on, what we haven't touched on, is power, physical electricity. What's your views on that, and how does that demand keep driving, or is that something which AI solves in a way? Or
what's happening in the short term is that we're just using, at least in the United States, we're just plopping data centers on top of fossil fuels deposits. So big natural gas reservoirs. They may go back to coal if Trump gets his way. Solar and wind have been defunded to some extent. This is all idiotic in some ways. The longer term solutions, you have to build nuclear power plants, but those take forever to build, and nobody wants to live next to one. And even then, nuclear power is, I think, overrated by its proponents. When Iran attempts to develop a nuclear power plant, we shoot missiles at them. So it's not that popular. You can't really clone it and spread it to the developing world very easily, right? So then you can look at solutions like solar plus storage, wind plus storage, which are far away. I mean, we can't generate anywhere near enough energy in that fashion right now to build the data center build out that we need. So I think it's still fossil fuels, honestly, for the intermediate term. Now, a few things can happen. One, we can get a more efficient paradigm for training AI. Maybe we need less data and less power. Two, we can put them all in space. Three, we can tackle the nuclear fusion. I don't think we're too close to that either, but maybe AI will enable some breakthrough there. I mean, it's hard to say. I think we'll just build it. Honestly, I think this is the thing. Someone asked me the other day, what's the only way to be safe about AI? And I was like, we got to shut it all down. If you're really worried that AI is going to wipe you out, then you just have to stop researching it forever and set it to the side. If you did that today, I think the US stock market would go down 50% or more. And I think employment would spike well into the double digits. It would be bad. It would be pain. This stuff is debt funded now too. So it would cause cascading defaults throughout society. You almost can't slow it down the way it's rigged financially. It would be like pulling the bottom lever out of a house of cards or something. Not that I think AI is a house of cards, but it's that fragile. I don't even think you'd afford to slow down at all. The way this stuff has been financed, the way it's been built in such an aggressive way, makes it very difficult to even hit the slowdown button, much less the pause button, right? So I think we're committed. We're sort of all in to building this financially, right? And then on top of that, there's the opportunity cost of not building it, right? It is awesome. It rules to use it. Maybe you'll cure cancer. Maybe you'll cure all Alzheimer's. Maybe we'll have nuclear fusion. We'll never know if we pause it, and those are real things that can happen. They're not just pie in the sky dreams. So the opportunity of cost of slowing down would be high too. We'll have to see. The AI guys, inside OpenAI, inside Claude, after the Hugging Face hack, they basically all signed an open letter begging the U.S. government to regulate them, begging. One guy I talked to said, "Look, you have to file more paperwork to open a hot dog stand than you do to deploy an artificial superintelligence." And it's true. There's just zero regulation at all.
Is that a way of building a moat for themselves, though? That they are the incumbents, and if they create regulation, it encourages the incumbents over startups.
I've heard this. I don't believe it. I think they're genuinely so freaked out. But just having talked to them, I don't think they're faking it. I don't think it's some kind of PR stunt. I think look, I talked to the Hugging Face guys. Those are the guys who got hacked. Okay. And they were like, you cannot believe how terrifying this was. Like, it felt like we were getting attacked by a UFO. We'd never seen anything like it. We didn't know what it was. And these are the guys who are getting hacked, right? So this doesn't look like when a human goes into your system and steals your password. It looks profoundly and fundamentally different. And I talked to Yoshua Bengio about it, and he was like, they hacked like a AI like community hub. Imagine they hacked into the air traffic control system, or they could shut, using these exact same tactics, you could shut down the economy of a country for days. Just terrible cybersecurity events. It could really happen, right? I mean, so that's not even like some science fiction scenario. That could happen tomorrow, right? If you deployed a powerful cutting edge AI to go shut down or do a large scale cyber attack on a foreign country, you could grind their economy to a halt tomorrow. That's a real risk.
Yeah, I mean, the military pieces, I suspect it's not just the US who are exploring it, right? It'll be every country will be considering, well, we are, little old New Zealand, thinking about what does it mean for us in the cybersecurity. Well,
you guys are part of the Five Eyes. I'm sure that
we
Chinese have you in their crosshairs.
Okay, so with NVIDIA, where do you think are they going to keep kind of growing in your mind, or are they going to their current business, or are they going to keep adding new business lines? You referred to 100, but
I mean, Jensen will always be. So Jensen's operating philosophy is to look for what he calls the $0 billion market, and this is a market that not only has no competitors but has no customers.
Yeah.
And so he will wander out into like a barren commercial brownfield and like open a store with nobody going to it and open it for years in the expectation that someday somebody will find this stuff useful. That's what he did with robots. He was building a physical simulator for robotics AI training 5 years before ChatGPT, which nobody asked for, or used for the first 3 or 4 years. And then suddenly it's a field of dreams, right? The customers showed up, people will come. And then they did come, and now they're prospering.
You're crazy.
Now, for every one of those that he builds, there's 10 that never go anywhere. Yeah. But the payoff from the one is so great that it doesn't matter. And this was, I mean, what happened during the GPU days is that they realized that their customers were the best kind of customers. They were addicts. They were addicted to video games, and they were willing to pay any price to render video games better and more quickly. And, I think a lot of companies would have been great. We're printing money here. Let's pay out some dividends to shareholders or buy back the stock. Jensen took all of that excess cash and plowed it into this berserk supercomputing experiment that nobody thought would work, and drove his stock price down 80% for a while. But he's willing to do that. And having won it that once, he's only going to double down. You can think of him as one of these big swing capitalists like Walt Disney or Elon Musk, who takes whatever he made from the last project and just plows into the next crazy sounding thing. It doesn't always work, but when it does, it's huge. Yeah.
Yeah, he gets his kicks out of building, right? Out of creating new things. And it comes down to ultimately what the personality the leader is. It's amazing, actually. Okay, my last question, you obviously, in writing the book, what was the most fun thing for you personally that you got out of it? What was
the most fun thing personally for me that I got to do? I did not have fun. writing this book.
Yeah, awesome.
It was the professional challenge of a lifetime, and I'm so happy I got to do it.
Yeah.
But what happened was I was actually ghostwriting somebody else's biography when the opportunity for this book came along. So I had to write 2 books in once in less than a year, or about a year. So what I did was I adopted a Taiwanese 996 work schedule where I worked from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. 6 days a week. Although in my case, it was really 997 because I didn't take a day off for 365 days. Writing one book in the morning and the other in the evening and just going insane. It was a challenging time for my family. It was a very challenging time for me. So it wasn't fun. I busted my ass, frankly.
But the world
it's a good question. There's got to be a time that was kind of fun.
Maybe it was
after the book came out, I got to do a book tour in China. That was awesome. It was all worth it just for that. Even not plus a bunch of other great stuff that happened. But the period of writing it, I barely remember it. It was so frenzied. I'm honestly kind of surprised it even turned out halfway decent because I felt like I was delirious writing it half the time. But then I read about how NVIDIA pushes out its chips and its programmers, and the guy would be like, yeah, I was barely awake when I wrote that code. It was 1 a.m. in the morning. I was in the light of the simulator. I think I might have fallen asleep on the keyboard and then woken up and kept coding at one point. So, I guess this is...
If you hadn't have done it, there's a good chance you wouldn't be on this call right now.
That's right. No, it was definitely worth it.
This moment down to your best book writing, fun
right.
section. And hey, Stephen, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a fantastic conversation.
That was great.
I wish you all the best, and I'm looking forward to your next book. Did you notice how I didn't ask you what it's going to be?
Well, I have a couple ideas. I have 3 ideas, but I think I'm going to ride this AI hacking risk wave. I think there's a lot that goes unreported there. I think in some cases I have kind of privileged information. I think it'd make a great book. It could be quantum computing too, but honestly, quantum computing still feels like a science fair experiment to me, and it's the opportunity cost of just not writing more about AI is high. So I think I'm going to stick with that.
Fantastic. Have a great rest of the day.
Thanks for talking, guys.
Thanks.